Enough of the introductions. Let's actually factor a polynomial. Really, there are 8 steps. I broke it down to 3 steps. Step 2 has 6 steps in it. Of these 8 steps, there's only one step here that I keep calling the hard one, and that's the number 2.2. Find the 2 magic integers. We'll talk about what that means, but that's the only part that requires trial and error. And the only other reason it's hard is because it requires all this underlying knowledge, and you got to put this all together into answering this question. But let's go forward. So let's review the steps. Okay, I'm going to go through each of these steps. Starting polynomial, we're starting with 15x squared. This is a polynomial. There are 3 terms. This is a quadratic expression, not an equation. There's no equal sign. It's an expression. It's got 3 terms. One's got an x squared term, and that's why it's quadratic. One's 72x, and an x term, and a non-x term, and a constant term. What does all this mean? Why are we doing this? Those are separate questions. Trust me, I can explain those. And the question is not why it's useful in the real world. Why is a jigsaw puzzle useful in the real world? It's not. But it's fun to do, and you'll see this is fun to do. So ignore why this is useful. It is useful. In fact, there is something that depends on this. But let's just factor this polynomial. Once you learn how to do this, you can do this day and night, and all of algebra is no more difficult than this. So first step is factor out the greatest common factor. It turns out of these 3 terms, each of these terms, 15x squared and negative 72x and negative 15, can all be divided by 3. And therefore, when you divide them by 3, pull the 3 out, you get the 3 over here. And therefore, 15x squared divided by 3 is 5x squared. Negative 72x divided by 3 is negative 24x. And negative 15 divided by 3 is negative 5. Step 2. Now that you've factored out the 3, what you're left with is, you're left with this quadratic expression. It's a simpler quadratic because we just pulled out the common factor of 3. In many cases, there's no common factor. That's why step 1 would not be necessary. We would just do the 6 steps inside step 2. So I picked this one intentionally. So there you go. In a quadratic expression, you have 3 terms, and you have an x squared term, an x term, and a constant term. And those the coefficients of those terms have a, b, and c. Now again, if none of these terms make sense to you, join my community, and I will give you simple lectures on what this means. This is trivial stuff. It'll take you 30 minutes to learn what this is. But anyway, the a is 5. A is 5. B is negative 24. And C is negative 5. Now that you have those 3 numbers, now the next step is easy. The next step is find AC and find B. Well, AC means A times C. So A is 5 and C is negative 5. So A times C is 5 times negative 5 equals negative 25. Then the second thing we're looking for is simply B, which is negative 24. That step is trivial. Now, here's the hard part, step 2.2. Now we take those 2 numbers we just came up with, AC and B, and now we have to find 2 more integers. We're looking for 2 integers that meet the following 2 conditions. We're looking for 2 integers that multiply to negative 25, which means the product of these 2 integers, by the way, integers. If you don't know what an integer is, we'll talk about that also. And nobody knows what an integer is. And these 2 integers that add up to negative 24. So we need to find 2 integers that meet these 2 conditions. And how do we do that? One of the ways of doing it is the X method or the diamond method. They do this in school, so I decided to draw that. But there's nothing special about that, okay? It's just a way of drawing. It's just a way of drawing a place of 4 numbers. So by drawing this X, I get 4 spots. And the top number is AC, which is negative 5 times 5, okay? And the top number is negative 25. which we got by multiplying A times C, and the bottom number is negative 24. And what we're looking for is we're looking for these two numbers, two missing numbers that add up to, we're looking for these two numbers that multiply, whose product is negative 25, and whose sum is negative 24. And so how do we do that? So now we got to use, here's the trial and error part. So let's make a table of all the integers whose product is negative 25. Well, here you go. First option, negative 5 times 5 is negative 25, so the products work. But negative 5 plus 5 is 0. That doesn't work. Or positive 5 times negative 5 is also negative 25, but then again, 5 plus negative 5 is 0. Doesn't work. Then you can try 25 times negative 1. That is negative 25. But the sum of negative 25 plus negative 1 is positive 24. It doesn't work. So finally, you take negative 25 times 1. That, in fact, the product is negative 25, and the sum is negative 24. This is the hard part, the trial and error part, and that makes the whole thing seem mysterious. But now that we have those numbers, it wasn't that hard. We have these two numbers. The numbers are negative 25 and 1. Now, what do we do with that? We fill in the x. Now these are our magical missing numbers that we now have. What do we do with these numbers? 1, positive 1, and negative 25. What do we do with this? We take this quadratic expression that we have, this original expression, and we take the middle term. We take this middle term, which is negative 24, and since we found these two integers that add up to negative 24, we split it because negative 24 is equal to negative 25 plus x. So we replace this negative 24x with negative 25 plus x. And this expression, therefore, has the same value. 5x squared minus 24x minus 5 is the same as 5x squared minus 25x plus x minus 5. So let's go forward. Now that we split them apart, we group them. Now we have 4 terms. Now we group the two terms over here and 2 terms over here. And a magical thing happens. Now that we've done that, next step, that was step 2.4. So remember, step 2.1 was the complicated step, the puzzle, the finding of these two numbers. Step 2.3 is split these into 4 terms, split that middle term into 2 terms. Now that we split that term into 2 terms, group them into 2 terms, and now that we've grouped them into 2 terms, now we can factor out each of these 2 terms. So now we can take this, and turns out you can factor out a 5x from this. 5x pulled out gives you x minus 5, because 5x times x minus 5 is in fact 5x squared minus 25x. If any of this is confusing, don't worry. This is it's very easy to understand this. I'll explain it separately. Click the link below, join my community, and learn how to do this. And then you have x minus 5 is really 1 times x minus 5. That's an important thing to recognize. Anything times 1 is itself. So I'm putting in this 1 back, and you'll see why in a second. But essentially, I factored out these two groups, and I get 5x times x minus 5 plus 1 times x minus 5. And now what you have is, voila, you have the same factor, x minus 5 and x minus 5, which means the next step is 2.6. You can now regroup them. You can now take the 5x and the plus 1 and put them here, and take the x minus 5 and put it here. And that's it. We've just factored that quadratic expression. And there's only one more step, because remember, so now what we've done is we've taken the 5x squared minus 24x minus 5 and turned it and factored that into 2 prime factors. You can no longer factor this further. 5x plus 1 cannot be factored further, and x minus 5 cannot be factored further. And then remember that 3 we factored out at the beginning, we got to put that back. So the full answer is we started with this, we factored out the 3, we then factored the 5x squared, that quadratic, and the final answer is this in the bottom. This is the answer. This is it. Fully factored quadratic is this in the bottom. 3 factors. 3, which is prime. You can't break that down further. 5x plus 1, which is prime. Can't break that down further. And x minus 5, which is prime. And I'll show you many more examples. Click the link below. Join my math community, whether you're the parent or the student. And if you take the risk and just join for free, I will show you what you're missing, why this may be confusing. I will teach you all of the stuff underneath this. It's very simple.